Hey everyone, it's Dr. Renee. I wanted to hop on here to just do a quick video about how I got into Chinese medicine. You guys have been following me for a while. I talk about all things Chinese medicine, also how it relates to us on a body, mind, and spirit level. But what most people don't know is how I actually got into Chinese medicine. And like many people, I got into it because of pain. My eldest child was 4 months old. I started having excruciating neck pain out of the blue, and I didn't know why. I started taking ibuprofen, barely masked the pain enough for me to be functional. And then about a week of taking that, and by this point my stomach is very upset, I started having pain so bad that it felt like an ice pick that was stabbing me in my neck. Nothing I was taking was helping anymore. I ended up going into the emergency room. They did a whole bunch of scans. They took my blood and came back and said, we don't see anything. It probably was just stress. So, go home, relax. We're going to give you some stuff in the hospital. So I went home, took a shower. And as I was coming out of the shower, everything started spinning around. I had been familiar with anaphylactic reactions because I had 2 previous anaphylactic reactions to other medication. And so I started to recognize the symptoms. My throat was closing up. The room was spinning. My eyes, it was really hard for me to see because it was just swollen. And I started breaking out in hives. And so I ended up having to go back into the emergency room I had just left to get epinephrine. They can monitor me and my symptoms. And so as I'm laying there now in the wee hours in the morning, having left my 4-month-old at home and sitting there looking at the drip, and I was like, there has to be something different. Like, I can't go on like this. At some point got discharged from the hospital in the early morning, and again, really not given a lot of instruction on what to do. I left with now a neck brace, and in the room that I was in, that I was being discharged from, by the sink was a stack of business cards. And I thought that was so weird that there were business cards in the room that I was in, not in the waiting area, but in the room. And so as I'm walking out without this neck brace, I reached down and I grabbed a card and I lifted up eye level so I could see, and it was to an acupuncturist. And I am a big believer in nothing is happenstance and everything is divinely orchestrated. And so I didn't know really much about acupuncture at the time, but at this point I was willing to try anything. So I left and went home. I gave the office a call, and I came in the next day, and this little woman came out. She had to be 4'11". She asked me a couple of questions. She listened to my pulses. She looked at my tongue. She was like, oh, the baby has depleted you so much. And she went into like a little closet and pulled out this bottle, kind of looking like this, bottle like this. And she was like, take this, put it under your tongue twice a day, drop full of this, and to help you. I didn't know what it was, why it was, what was going on. But I was like, okay. And so she started to put a whole bunch of pins in my head. And I'm like, what does this have to do with my neck? But okay. And then she asked me, can you take off the neck brace? And I said, absolutely not. I was terrified. I was like, no, are you kidding me? This is the only thing keeping me together right now. And she said, please just trust me. And so I did. And I ended up taking the brace off. She helped me. And she told me to turn my head, rotate it to the left and to the right. And for the first time, and in about a week and a half, I was able to turn my head 30 degrees each way without pain. I just completely lost it in the office. I started crying. I was like, I don't know what voodoo you just did, but whatever it is, keep it going. A couple treatments later, no pain, was completely off the neck brace, and I had a renewed clarity on what needed to change in my life. I didn't know why. There wasn't a talk therapy session with it. I knew I had a different vision and clarity of what I wanted my life to be and the changes that I needed to make in order to have a different life. And so I then just continued to pursue that. And that was because the chi had started to circulate, and I started to get the clarity I needed to get out of a situation that was very toxic because my vision was clouded. I had become stuck, and that had manifested physically. And so if anybody has ever tried acupuncture, most traditional Chinese medicine practitioners, they don't do a lot of like talk therapy. They just kind of go through your signs and your symptoms, and they they let the needles do the talking. And that's exactly what I experienced. But it was enough to give me the ammunition and the directionality that I needed to have in order to build a better life for me and my child. So the power of this medicine is so beautiful, and I've seen it changed my life completely. Obviously I ended up going into this medicine and learning more about it. And, of course, now learning about it and knowing about it, I understood exactly what was going on in my life, but I didn't know it then. But yet it still empowered me to make better decisions and to use discernment wisely. So this is part of my purpose of why I'm so vocal about it, why I get on here, why I even do these videos. It's because it is a tool of empowerment for people to really come back into their original joy, into their original authenticity. I just wanted to share this briefly. I hope all is well. Have a wonderful week. Take care.